Alright, I've got DJ Dominomnom here outside of an auditorium on Tulane's campus. Hello, how are you doing today? You look wonderful. I love this fringe.
Oh, thanks. I'm good.
Cool.
I'm good.
Cool. Alright, how do you feel about being DJ of the month for October of 2019?
I'm honored, honestly. It's pretty sweet. I'm really glad they're doing this because it's cool, and I think there's a lot of amazing DJs at WTUL, and it's a great way to feature them and see what they're listening to.
Yes, so tell us about your Spotify playlist that you sent me. How did you choose those songs? Is that like on your playlist this month? Are those like your all-time favorite songs?
I tried to like encompass kind of the energy that Tunnelvisions has, and also just like show people really cool music that I'm really into, and kind of like start curiosity in a lot of different pockets maybe of different types of music. There's like a lot of world stuff on there. There's stuff that I used to listen to a lot more, and then like some of my like actual like favorite musicians that I listen to all the time, you know, those kind of like on repeat albums that you listen to all the time. I tried to make it like kind of a wide range of moods.
Your show Tunnelvisions, how many years have you had that?
I've been doing Tunnelvisions for 7 years.
Wow.
7 years.
And it's always been at the same time?
2 to 4 p.m. on Friday.
2 to 4 p.m. on Fridays.
Yeah. I got Tunnelvisions a year after I apprenticed, probably because I'm here during the summer because I live here. And then I think the program director wanted, at the time, her name was Chelsea Lanson, and she actually had Tunnelvision. So Tunnelvisions is older than I am.
Same name?
At TUL. Same name. It was like her name.
Yeah.
And we did it together for a few years.
Oh, okay.
And then she like got a new job and wanted to do that and was like ready to like let it go, and I just kept it going. So yeah.
Oh yeah. So you're from here?
I am.
Where did you go to high school?
I went to McGee. Uptown.
McGee.
Yeah.
McGee.
Just down the avenue.
How was that? All girls.
All girls. McGee's an amazing school. It definitely taught me a lot about speaking up, speaking out, learning things, being curious about things, looking at the world in like a different way. I feel like the way that they educate and focus on women and femmes is like a beautiful thing. It's definitely a school that has a lot of esteem, and it's a really great school.
Something I admire about you is just the way that you own yourself, your space, your message, whatever it is, your music.
Yeah.
And do you feel like McGee helped you cultivate that in a place where femmes were given that space?
Yeah, I think definitely I'm definitely really privileged for the kind of education that I had. I was really lucky. I was a really smart kid with really high test scores, so I got a scholarship and I could go there. Having that opportunity to like have that individual attention. I mean, there's only like 30 people in each grade there, and you feel very safe as a woman. I think I was listening to this amazing interview with Esperanza Spalding talking about jazz and talking about women in jazz and femmes in jazz, and she talked about how she's reached her highest potential when she was playing in all-female ensembles. And I think that we're not quite at a place where that's not true in the world. I still think that women and femmes have this ability to like feel safe around one another in ways that they just don't feel in other spaces. There's always like a defensiveness, and defensiveness inhibits creativity and flow. So I think when you have that kind of space, like I did at McGee, and I developed a really strong sense of self, and just like a desire to like understand the truth of things and build connections to things. That's kind of where I think a lot of my curiosity leads me to like learn things to talk about. Especially being on air, there's this thing that happens where it's like you want to give more to the listeners so that you can like, I learn with the listeners all the time. Like I don't know things off the top of my head. I'm like researching as I'm going sometimes, which is fun because like why not use that space for that? But yeah, it's interesting. I kind of like to think of it as like a listening party. And learning about music, it's definitely a process. I mean, I kind of think of my time at TUL as like an independent study, like a passion project, really, where I've just grown from, you know, loving like Animal Collective and Deer Hunter to like knowing so much about world music and early jazz and music that matters to the city that I'm in, and outside of like, you know, because I started tunnel visions. I started TUL when I was still in school. I went to Loyola for music industry. Shout out Wolfpack.
Okay, so would you consider your show a progressive show? And if so, what does that word mean to you?
Well, technically, according to WTUL's air programming, whatever, it is a progressive slot.
Yeah.
I think I used to think of prog as like prog rock at some point, but progressiveness in itself has its own definition separate from connotations like prog rock. I definitely think my show is progressive, but I also think it's kind of historical in a lot of senses, so I don't really know if that's progressive or if it's just me being like, hey, there's all this other stuff out there that kind of is important. It's just basically saying it's not pop music, which of course it's not pop music, but I still think it's...
Right.
I don't know. What does progressive mean? I can think of the idea of like I'm more of a radical person, so I don't know if like progressive is even enough. I think progressive is just meaning not regressive or not just stationary. So progressive is like barely there, and I think I'm far beyond that, but also I don't really think about it at all. I just think about what music is fascinating me and like what I want to hear, you know? Music that like has that thing. It really doesn't matter what kind of music it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about some of your most memorable shows. Did you have like your best friend's band on air?
I think some of my favorite shows usually have some kind of theme or game that I'm playing with the listeners.
Yeah.
There's definitely been times where performances and interviews have been phenomenal and like super exciting. I mean, I think one of my favorite performances I've ever had, there's been so many though, honestly, so many great ones, but my friends, they're in a band called Tuba Skinny, does like early trad jazz. They're an amazing band here in New Orleans, and they have a lot of members, and having a full trad band come cram into the station, having large ensembles in the station is really fun. Because it's kind of just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's not that big of a space.
It's not that big of a space, and it's very loud.
Yes.
I have a recording of that somewhere in that I saved from the archives like years ago. I just thought of one. I talked about this in my written interview on Armstrong's birthday this year. Like, I'll do a theme. Like, this is kind of an example of what kind of shows make my favorite show.
Okay.
I'll have like a last minute idea for a theme. Like, let's say it's like, this one was Armstrong's birthday. And I played this old interview I'd never listened to before, and I just kind of put it in between as like an interlude between old jazz songs that I picked that I thought were relevant, or maybe some that he had written or whatever. But I couldn't just play Armstrong the whole time, so I had to find a way to make it interesting and relevant to like his birthday. And as I'm splicing this interview on the fly, no idea what was going to happen, he was like announcing the song that I had randomly queued, or like
no way,
and it was so weird, it was so in sync, and I was just like, it's moments like that where I'm just like, I wish I would have planned it, maybe like I was that thoughtful about it, but actually the radio gods were just on my side.
Oh, definitely.
And it's moments like that, and then also I started a game, I call it Record Roulette, where people call in. And this is because I really want to start to use the archives more, because we have like 30,000 vinyl, and
true.
I don't even know where to begin. It's so many.
It's just stacks.
It's so many.
It's everywhere.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
I'll never even scratch the surface. But I started playing a game where people call in and they pick a random number, and I'll pull the record from the stacks. I'll pull a progressive record, which just means like not jazz or like not local, and then I'll pull a jazz record, and I would like see play a song off of it. I would like pick something random and try something new, and sometimes it was like really funny, and sometimes it was like kind of cool, just stuff like that, like engaging with the audience, or just like geeking out and just being like, I'm only gonna play French music for the next hour, or like I'm only gonna play music like with femme-led bands or something like that. Like,
I remember when you did that.
I had just done this interview with with Leah Hennessy, who works at the Music Box, which the Music Box Village, they come on WTUL all the time. It is an amazing space. There's really nothing quite like it in the world. It's this big collaborative effort, and it's part of this larger organization called New Orleans Airlift, but the Music Box Village is a place in the Bywater where there are all of these tiny musical architectures that have been built by artists, and they all make different sounds, unique sounds, unusual and experimental sounds, and people, like tons of amazing artists have come to play there. Like they've had all kinds of people for like the really trendy stuff, like Mac DeMarco has played there, Animal Collective has played there, and then there's been a ton of Louisiana focused music and very like historically important music and musicians here. They had Sun Ra Orchestra play there. It was insane. Yeah, it was wild.
I didn't know about that.
But they have this amazing village, and Leah came on to talk about some shows that were coming up. I think we were talking about Layla McCalla, who's also an amazing artist. She has an album out called Capitalist Blues. It's fantastic.
Wow.
Beautiful album. I think she was coming on to talk about that, and then we're talking about this thing, this experimental project, and this guy calls in the middle of the interview, and he said, like, right when I get off air, he's like, basically, I think he called us, like, it was really cheesy. He, like, called us, like, bird brains, and, like, we're just, like, some, like, babbling women who need to shut up, basically, and just play the music. And I was like, there's no music to play. Like, they haven't played the show yet. It's experiment. But I didn't even get a word in.
Right.
He screamed at me, and then he started cursing at me. And then he hung up, and I was just like,
wow.
I was like, I'm not feeling this right now. Just like, what the heck? And it kind of shook us, which we're both very strong, creative women who are, like, kind of powerhouses and, like, do a lot of really wonderful things, and for us to kind of be like, dang, this really caught us off guard, was kind of upsetting. And I was like, wait a second, like, I can turn this around and just be like, I'm gonna do something with this. And so I did a show where I talked about what happened to the audience, and I don't know, it was kind of overwhelming, like the amount of people who were calling just to be like, you know, that person sucks, or don't listen to them. You know, I mean, I don't really care about what one, like, mean man has to say. I think it's more about knowing that you always have a space, and if you have a platform like this, you can't use it for everything because there are some rules, but you can definitely still speak on things that, like, matter to you, and in ways, maybe it's like playing a lot of really relevant music to that. And so I played a bunch of songs that were very pointed at, like, badass femmes and women, and I, like, canceled Spooky Visions that day, which is my Halloween version of my radio show, and just did Femme Visions and just didn't care. It's an awkward thing, and I was just like, I'm just gonna do this because this is my show and I can do this, and screw that guy, you know?
Yeah.
And I knew he'd probably still be listening because he obviously wanted to, like, let out some rage at me for some reason. The interview was totally normal. I have done way more ridiculous interviews on TUL, and not even interviews, like, I've just had, like, talk segments that are totally goofy and are purely for entertainment and have been way less organized and way more awkward. This was, like, business as usual, you know, talking about an amazing space, an amazing project with amazing musicians. I was like, I don't know what the planets are doing, but this is not okay. And I was kind of just like, after that week, I was like, I'm done. I'm just not even going to sweat it anymore because it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what men have to say about you. It doesn't matter what anybody does. I'm not about that. I feel like that just happens. You get caught off guard.
That happens.
It happens, but yeah, I don't know.
That was definitely admirable. I remember I tuned in, like, right when that happened, and I was like,
really?
What is going on today?
Yeah. It was the weirdest day. I don't
personally
know what was in the air that day, but I bet you that man was not having a good day either.
Oh, no, definitely not.
Which, that part, and I remember, like, I had, like, people kept calling, so at some point I was like, it's okay. Like, I'm, like, on the air, I'm like, it's okay. Like, headphones on, I'm like, you know, everybody has those days, you know, like, I was like, we'll be fine. But it was really nice because, like, I honestly, like, got really emotional for a second. It was like, what the heck? I think the more space you take up and the louder that you are, you have to brace yourself for a lot of criticism and critique, especially from the sidelines, and especially from people who just don't know what's going on. And I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, it's easier said than done, but trying not to waste your energy is, like, a big life lesson that I feel like I've learned more recently is just like, if people aren't on board with what you're doing, they're just not your people, and you can just keep doing what you're doing. I sometimes forget because you're alone in there, you know?
Right.
I think a lot of people who have never done radio, or I don't know, maybe they just don't even think about it. It's like you're kind of just sitting in there, kind of in this like interesting headspace, especially when you're by yourself, or maybe like in that case I was hosting an interview, but you're kind of just like, when you get calls, especially like after, you know, the interview was done, Leah had left, and I was in there by myself, just kind of feeling like so bummed. I'm starting to get these texts and these DMs and these phone calls, and it was so wild because I felt kind of like I was being petty in response, and I was just like, so what? Oh no. Then it was like, I think I realized like, no, like you can totally say something and people actually really want to know what's going on. They're actually more curious about what's happening in your real life. I think people desire that connection and that vulnerability, and when you offer that to people, the support that you do get is insane. People were saying like they've listened to my show for years. Someone was like, your show's helped me through like really gnarly times in my life.
Wow.
And just like stuff that I'm just like, whoa, like this matters to you, because it matters to me. Like I go there because I want to be there and because I like listening to music, and I really love DJing with TUL. I love being in that station. It's become like a ritual for me. You know, I go once a week. I've been doing it for so long. It's like hundreds of visits to the same spot on the same day at the same time. It's like got this very sacred energy where I just get to like play music and feel whatever I'm feeling, or explore new things and learn stuff. And so it's the fact that I stood up for myself out loud really helped other people, and that they felt really connected and motivated to say something about it. That was so overwhelming. I was like, oh my gosh, my listener family, you know? It was cute. I try to engage with people, and I'm almost like, how can I do this more? Like, I kind of want to know more what's like going on with people. In general, like, I don't know. I mean, I did a segment once called We've Got Problems with a friend of mine, Elizabeth, and it was very random. It was like on the fly, and we had people call in and tell us a problem they were having, any problem, and we were totally unqualified to solve it, but we were going to talk about it on air.
Sure.
Anonymously, you know, it's like we don't put callers on the air. So basically the caller would call and I'd answer and tell me the whole spiel, and then I remember we talked about different things, like one of the problems was like a car problem or something. We definitely didn't have any idea on how to fix it. I think we were like Googling it, because we were like, we gotta give them an answer, right? So we put on a song and we're Googling it, and we're just trying to like solve their problems. But it was really funny, and I remember like now I have a friend who called in, like, and like she followed me on Instagram, and because we like talked about her problem for a while, and it was so funny. Especially nowadays, people really desire some kind of authentic connection that isn't just like on the internet and on your phone, and you know, we're straying further away from that in today's world. So something like an anachronistic form of media, like a radio station, you know, we're all volunteers there. I think it really resonates with people. We have really amazing progressive radio in New Orleans, and it's not something to sleep on, because a lot of places do not have that. And even other cities, like other places, like I have friends who live in New York who have radio shows there and stuff like that, and like I've shown them like what TUL looks like, and they're just kind of amazed that we really have that space. And I'm just like,
really,
New Orleans is great for hidden treasures, and it's like no surprise to me that we have great radio here, you know.
Speaking of hidden treasures, what is your favorite nook or cranny of the city to go with? Sit, listen to music, play music, any of the above?
Okay, cool. All right.
Because there's many.
There's many. Do we want it to be like an establishment, or like?
It can be a spot in the woods. It can be your favorite bar.
Okay.
What is your nook? Or I have a couple, so you can just name one or two or three.
Yeah, I feel like I have a few. I mean, I think my favorite, I would say two of my favorite places that aren't like necessarily large spaces, but have a really, like, I love going there and being there and seeing music there. One of them is definitely St. Rock Tavern, which is a bar, so 21 and up only. and I play there a bunch, and there's some good music on Sundays and Mondays, and sometimes other days of the week too. And I like going there. I mean, I play there all the time also, and I just love Miss Martha. Shout out Miss Martha. But the Starlight is probably my favorite newest space that's opened, specifically for jazz more than anything else. I played there as like a songwriter, and I loved it.
Okay.
I just like that space. It's right off Bourbon, and it kind of feels like jazz is like it's like
Really?
a spot where it's on St. Louis.
Okay.
Like half a block off Bourbon, which is crazy because if you live here, you know that like no one wants to hang out near Bourbon.
No,
ever.
and never.
But literally every Wednesday night, some of the most wonderful and talented jazz musicians go and hang out here and at the Starlight. And like Tuba Skinny plays from 8 to 11 every Wednesday, and then from 11 to late there's a jazz jam hosted by an amazing musician named Nahum. And it's just cool. People come and sit in. You really never know who's going to be there. I've seen Dr. Michael White play one of the most insane versions. He's a clarinet player. One of the most insane versions of Summertime with my friend Shay Cohn, who's in Tuba Skinny, on like a Friday evening, just like piano and clarinet, and it was insane. I don't know. It's just something about that space has magical energy. And then I feel like there's a lot of wandering magical collectives that happen. There's some really amazing brass collectives and brass bands in the city, if you ever get a chance to see them. But it's not really like a particular place that they play. They kind of walk around and play things. But if you ever get to see Wits End, or you see them on a bill, because sometimes they do play shows, go see Wits End Brass Band. Yeah. There's all kinds of magical nooks and crannies. I mean, yeah.
Any final words to people who are watching this video, wherever it will be?
I'd say, you know, I love being a part of WTUL. I don't plan on going anywhere for a while at this point, because I can't seem to ever want to imagine living anywhere else. But also, appreciating a resource like this is such a special thing. Having something like this is such a special thing. And, I mean, the fact that I'm not sick of it, and like that I'm continually more in love with being there and just never bored, is kind of a wild thing. It says something a lot about WTUL and what it is as a whole, because there's a lot of people and familiar faces that are a part of what happens. Even if you are like a casual listener, it's like maybe at some point you've heard the Surf Show, which is an amazing and long-running show on WTUL. Hosted by one of the best DJs ever, DJ Hunter King. And there's just so many shows. We have one of the longest reggae shows in the country, which is insane, hosted by someone named Shepard Samuels. And if he knows you and he's Facebook friends with you, he'll tag you in a bunch of cool new music all the time. And it's amazing. Yeah, it's a very special family. And it's cool to know that the listeners feel that too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Woo!